There's a strange kind of emptiness that creeps in when life should feel full. You wake up, you check your phone, you scroll a little, maybe you get some work done, maybe you even hang out with friends or watch a movie, and yet nothing hits. It's like your emotions have gone offline. You can remember what happiness used to feel like, but you can't seem to access it anymore. And that's terrifying because it's not that you're sad, exactly. It's that you feel nothing. That absence of joy feels heavier than sadness ever did. A lot of people think that if they've lost the ability to enjoy things, it means something is deeply wrong with them, like they've broken their brain or they've lost their soul. But that's not really how it works. The truth is that your brain and body are still functioning, but they've entered a kind of survival mode. They're conserving energy, protecting you from emotional overload, from disappointment, from pain. And the way the mind does that is by flattening your emotional range, numbing not just sadness, but happiness too. Most people don't realize that the same system in your brain that gives you pleasure is the one that gives you motivation. It's the dopamine system, the chemical messenger that drives you to seek, to move, to anticipate. When that system gets overstimulated, it stops responding to normal levels of input. It's like a microphone that has been turned up too loud. Eventually, you just get static. We live in a world where dopamine is constantly being spiked. Every time you open social media, every notification, every little hit of novelty, every tiny reward, your brain is learning to expect stimulation at that level. And then when you sit down to do something simple, like read a book, cook a meal, or just breathe, your brain doesn't get that same jolt. It feels empty, boring, like nothing's happening. You've trained your mind to expect fireworks, and now a quiet candle flame doesn't move you at all. And then you start to judge yourself for that. You think, why can't I just enjoy things like I used to? What's wrong with me? But that judgment actually makes it worse because it adds shame on top of numbness. You start to feel like you're broken, and that belief feeds into the very system that's shutting down your motivation. The more you try to force yourself to feel, the less you do. So much of this comes down to how our brains handle expectation. Dopamine isn't really the chemical of pleasure. It's the chemical of anticipation. It's what pushes you to go after something. But when the outcome doesn't match the expectation, your dopamine drops, and that feels like disappointment. Over time, if your brain learns that no matter what you do, the outcome never feels satisfying enough, it starts to suppress that entire process. You stop reaching, you stop hoping, you stop feeling. There's also another layer to this, the emotional one. Sometimes you can't enjoy anything anymore because your nervous system is exhausted. You've been through too much for too long. Constant stress, constant pressure, constant adaptation. Maybe it's not one big trauma, but 1,000 small ones. The daily grind, the loneliness, the quiet fear that you're falling behind, that life is moving faster than you can keep up with. Those tiny stresses build up like layers of static in your body. Eventually, your system says, enough. It shuts down the emotional volume just to survive. This is why burnout doesn't always look like someone lying in bed unable to move. Sometimes it looks like someone who's functioning perfectly fine, going to work, taking care of responsibilities, but inside everything feels muted. The things that used to light them up don't anymore. Food doesn't taste the same. Music feels flat. Conversations feel mechanical. It's like the world has lost its color. And what's cruel about this state is that it tricks you. Because you look around and everything seems okay, you're not in crisis, you're not falling apart, so you think you shouldn't feel this way. You start to gaslight yourself, saying, I have no reason to be unhappy. But numbness is into the absence of suffering. The body is response to suffering that has gone unacknowledged. In psychology, we call this anhedonia, the inability to experience pleasure. But I think that word doesn't really capture the emotional truth of it. Anhedonia sounds clinical, detached, like something you could fix with a pill. What it really is, though, is your brain's way of saying, I'm tired. It's your nervous system whispering, I can't keep feeling everything, so I'll feel nothing. And so the path out isn't about trying to force joy back into your life. It's about learning to listen to the silence underneath your numbness. That silence is information. It's your body asking for rest, for safety, for something real. You can't fight your way out of emotional shutdown. You have to understand it. Let's think about this from a neurological standpoint. Dopamine isn't bad. It's necessary. It's what makes you care about things. But when the brain's reward system is constantly overstimulated, it starts to desensitize. The receptors that receive dopamine signals begin to downregulate, meaning they stop responding as strongly. You need more stimulation to feel the same effect. It's like tolerance with caffeine or alcohol. The same dose doesn't hit anymore. Now imagine what happens when your environment is full of dopamine triggers. Scrolling, notifications, games, instant gratification, constant novelty. Your brain gets flooded. Eventually, it starts to expect that level of stimulation as the baseline. Anything below that feels empty. That's why even simple pleasures like sitting outside or cooking stop feeling rewarding. They're not enough to register on your overstimulated dopamine scale. But this isn't just about technology, it's about lifestyle. Most people's lives today are designed to avoid discomfort. We fill every moment with noise, podcasts, videos, conversations, work. The moment silence appears, we panic. Because silence forces us to face ourselves. And if you've been avoiding certain emotions for a long time, grief, fear, regret, that silence feels unbearable. What is interesting is that when people start to reconnect with themselves, when they take breaks from stimulation, when they meditate, when they do therapy, the first thing they often feel isn't joy, it's pain, it's boredom, it's restlessness. Because underneath the numbness are all the emotions you've been running from. You can't skip that step. You have to go through the discomfort before you reach peace. So if you feel like you can't enjoy anything anymore, maybe that's not a sign that something's wrong with you. That's a sign that your system is trying to heal in the only way it knows how, by shutting down to protect you from overstimulation and disappointment. The work isn't about forcing pleasure back into your life. It's about creating space for genuine emotion to return at its own pace, and that takes time. You can't rush it. Healing from emotional numbness is like thawing from frostbite. If you try to warm yourself too quickly, it hurts. You have to go slow. You have to let your nervous system learn that it's safe to feel again. And that starts with small moments, noticing a breath, feeling sunlight on your face, tasting your coffee without multitasking. These seem trivial, but they're how your brain relearns sensitivity. If you've been numb for a long time, joy won't come back in fireworks. It'll come back as a flicker, a small moment that feels slightly less empty than the rest. And if you can meet that moment with curiosity instead of frustration, it grows. The more attention you give to small moments of calm, presence, or subtle pleasure, the more your dopamine system recalibrates. The key is patience. You didn't lose joy overnight. You won't regain it overnight either. This process isn't linear. You'll have days where you feel okay and then crash again. That's normal. Every time your system shuts down, it's trying to protect you from something it thinks is too much. Instead of judging it, try to ask, what am I running from? What am I avoiding feeling? That's how you start to rebuild trust with yourself. The truth is, numbness isn't the opposite of joy. It's the space where joy is waiting to return. And the fact that you can notice your numbness, that part of you still wants to feel, means the healing process has already begun.